So in this lecture, let's actually go ahead and add some styling to our app. So the very first step in adding the styling is that we will get the Bootstrap CDN link. So let's go ahead and search for Bootstrap for CDN, and that should actually give you the option to get the CDN link. So I will go ahead and click on the first option, and now this thing right here is nothing but the CDN link for Bootstrap 4. So now once you have this link with you, now let's go ahead and just paste this link into your index.html's head tag. So I will go back, add this thing up over here. So as soon as you add the Bootstrap link and hit refresh, and rather than hitting refresh, always make sure to visit this URL again. So as you can see, now this thing looks a lot better. However, we are not going to just leave it like that. Instead, we are actually going to go ahead and format this in a proper manner. So if you don't want to follow this lecture of styling these things, then you can just go ahead, skip that. I will provide the entire source code of this particular project at the end of the section, so you can download from there. However, if you're interested in designing this, let's go ahead and continue. So the very first thing which we want to do here is that we want to go inside the body tag, and right here, just make sure that you don't delete these forms and everything like that. Just make sure to keep them as it is. Instead, we are going to just go ahead and cut them up and paste it inside these tags. So first of all, with Bootstrap, you always go ahead and create a container. So I'll create a div class and name it as container. And inside the container, we will have a row. So I'll create another div. So the class is going to be row. And within this row, I will have another div. And the class of this div is going to be call-md-12, meaning that it will actually go ahead, create a column and span all the 12 columns which are actually present. So I will go ahead and kind of minimize this file explorer menu to give us more horizontal space here. So now once we have this specific column which spans 12 columns, I will go ahead and take this entire form, cut it right away and paste it right in here. So when I paste this, this should look good. So as you can see, it actually aligned a little bit to the right. And now once we have placed this thing inside this particular row, so the row of this particular form ends here. Here after this, we now need to go ahead and create another row. So even before creating another row, let's actually go ahead and style the form which we have. So in order to style up the form, there are a few things which you need to do. So the first thing which you need to do is that to this particular form, you need to add something which is called as a form group. So right after the form tag, let's just go ahead and say div class equals. That's going to be form dash group, and this is actually going to be a row. And now this row or this div is now going to end right before the form tag ends. So I will go ahead and make this thing as an ending div tag. So this div will end right here. Now let's say we also want to add a label up over here which says something like select food to add. So let's create a label up over here right before the select box. So I will go ahead and say something like label. So that will create a label tag. And here I won't have the for option, but instead I will say class equals, let's say call-md-2. So that will actually go ahead and create label which spans 2 columns. Now inside this label, I will add some text. So let's say this label says select food to add. So now if I save this and hit refresh, it will say select food to add. And now as you can see, the button over here actually looks odd. So let's fix that as well. So now after adding this label, let's go ahead and also add a class to this thing as well. So now as we have used a column here, we'll also make use of a column over here as well. So I will say class, and in here I will say call-md-6, which means that this particular select field will actually span 6 columns. And also let's assign it a class called as form-control. So now let's get back and hit refresh, and as you can see, now this thing actually spans 6 columns. Now let's get back up over here again, and now over here let's add a final touch to this particular submit button. So here the button type is submit. However, we also want to add a class to this as well. So I will say class is going to be equal to btn, which stands for button. And let's say if you want to use a green button here, so I will say btn dash success. So once you go ahead, add that up and hit refresh, as you can see, you have the add button up over here. Now this thing actually looks a little bit weird. That's because I'm actually using a small window here. However, if you expand this, this should look much more better. So let me just go ahead and zoom out a little bit. So yeah, as I have zoomed out, as you can see, this is what it looks like. And you can also go ahead and make this text look a little bit bolder as well. So I will add a B tag over here for bold, and I will just cut the text from here, paste it up over here. So now if I go ahead, hit refresh, as you can see, this looks a lot better. So that's it for this specific lecture. However, in the upcoming lecture, we will go ahead and we will design the table for this specific items. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.